Pelosi versus MNUCHIN. A big day and a big twist and turn. Then I survive a crash. If you did not watch McConnell versus Trump, boy, that was an incredible crash as the winds in Los Angeles are picking up about 40 miles an hour. So it's too dangerous to record outside. So hence I'm inside on the early morning's LALATE set. And Pelosi is endeavoring to figure out how to deal with a problem. And that problem is not MNUCHIN, but the absence of MNUCHIN. New word tonight is that Pelosi's deeply worried about a Biden win and a McConnell win that could give her no stimulus. This is Pelosi versus MNUCHIN. Hey, good evening, everybody. This is Pelosi versus MNUCHIN in a late recording about a lot of twists and turns. We brought it inside amid very bad weather conditions outside here in Los Angeles. But new shocking developments tonight as Pelosi apparently is regretting that she pushed too hard with MNUCHIN because ultimately she may be left with the worst of two evils. That is Mitch McConnell. Boy, what a day this has been. Go to the Funnest channel, subscribe, because, there might be multiple shadows in the shot, but hey, I'm safe and you're here, and that's all that really matters. Also, like this video. In this video, I'll be going over why Nancy Pelosi really is now in a predicament. And that predicament is not something that she's entitled to see. That predicament is dealing with the same Senate come January. A problem she never envisioned. And ultimately, if she gets a Biden win, it may mean nothing if she has Mitch to deal with yet again. Let's get to the breaking news. The breaking news is that Nancy Pelosi is now seeing new Democratic numbers across the board, that the Democrats may not take the Senate, and she's deeply worried. If you watch McConnell versus Trump right before this in the recordings, I detailed that the Democrats are running out of money to try to push for a Senate win. Let me explain how this works. Every campaign always has its own donations, but then there's also super PACs that are donated for the purposes of the entire party across the entire House. Nancy Pelosi has one for the House, and Chuck Schumer has one for the Senate. You may have seen the advertisements, in fact, online. Chuck Schumer asking for money to help the Democrats win the Senate. Well, that is not going well, apparently, because new reports claim that the Senate may still stay Republican. Initial reports from ABC over the weekend suggest 80% chance that Chuck Schumer and the Democrats would take the Senate. But now the Democrats are apparently running out of money, and there's a possibility with a lot of very tight races, a confirmation of Judge Barrett this afternoon, and not much progress from Nancy Pelosi in her narrative, or Chuck Schumer on his, let's say, that the Republicans may maintain the Senate. And what does that mean for Pelosi versus MNUCHIN, and what does that mean for your stimulus? Oh boy. Let me explain what's going on. Nancy Pelosi has always been negotiating for your second stimulus with Steve Mnuchin, Treasury Secretary to Donald Trump. Well, guess what happens the day after election night if Donald Trump loses? Well, he may contest the election, but would he pass any law? No, probably not. And what would happen come Inauguration Day? Steve Mnuchin's gone, and Nancy Pelosi's favorite person to beat up in negotiations is no longer around. So who would she be negotiating with on behalf of the Republicans if there's a Trump loss? Well, there's two permutations here, and neither is good for Nancy Pelosi. One is a Trump win means that a leader, the highest leader in the nation for the Republican Party, would be negotiating against Nancy Pelosi. That could be Mitch McConnell. Or two, a Trump win could mean that Nancy Pelosi may have to ultimately deal with Mitch McConnell once again. Let me explain what's going on. The problem with the passage of laws by matter of law as opposed as a matter of Congress versus act of the president by executive order is everything passes through the Senate. Nancy Pelosi cannot cannot undo that. That is not in the permutations of her possibilities. She has to do whatever she wants to do through the Senate. And if she does not capture the Senate, if the Democrats don't capture the Senate, she's back to where she is today. And if the president loses, she'll be in a worse situation. Why? Because at that point, she has to negotiate with Mitch McConnell. Just some things. Isn't life very evil? During the negotiations of the second stimulus package, Nancy Pelosi asked and demanded that Mitch McConnell not be involved in the negotiations. She said that because Mitch McConnell pressed pause on her HEROES Act back in May, she didn't want him to be involved in the negotiations for your second stimulus. Ultimately, that hurt everyone, but it may hurt Nancy Pelosi the worst. Because if Biden wins and the Senate remains Republican, Nancy will have to negotiate with Mitch McConnell, not Steve Mnuchin. Oh boy. And you know what that is going to be. It's going to be a flat zero. Nancy Pelosi still currently has Steve Mnuchin at $1.9 trillion, but that's not a law. It's not a deal. It's not an agreement. There's no deal provisions. There's no agreement on stimulus check. There's no agreement on FPUC. There's no agreement on hazard pay. There's no agreement on state and local. There's no agreement on really much of anything. And that when offered the opportunity to accept 1.8 or 1.6 or 1.3, Nancy Pelosi said, no, I'll hope to get that deal after the election day. Well, if Donald Trump's gone and so is Steve Mnuchin, she's not going to get 1.8. That offer is gone. It's poof. It's like it's gone into thick of air. And so what does she have left as an offer? $300 billion from Mitch McConnell. $500 billion from Mitch McConnell. Literally nothing from Mitch McConnell. And Nancy Pelosi can't do anything about it. This is a big problem, and I got to tell you where the problem rests. The problem rests in that a Joe Biden win has Joe Biden saying that he, on day one of January 1, would introduce a $7 trillion bill that would include infrastructure and potholes. You see me detail that video. Well, you could do whatever you want, Joe, but if Mitch is in control of the Senate, tough luck, because this is a dead horse on arrival. You can write as many bills as you want, but once they land in the Senate, they're dead. Let me explain this again. If you're new to this channel, to something to become a law, it has to be passed in the House, then it goes to the Senate and passed in the Senate. If it doesn't pass the Senate, it never gets to the president. So Joe Biden can write as many things as he wants to write up. If Mitch McConnell's in charge of the Senate, it's not going to go anywhere. If Nancy Pelosi writes up something, it doesn't go anywhere. And so what does this mean as we sit here today? Well, there's a lot of key races that Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer are worried about for your stimulus, because ultimately she's been holding out for $3 trillion, $2.2 trillion. And if Mitch McConnell and the GOP take the Senate, she could be left with less than what Steve Mnuchin offered. Ironically, Steve Mnuchin should have negotiated with this deal point. Hey, Nancy, this is Steve. I want to say that if I lose, if my boss loses, you're going to get nothing. So I guess you should maybe take my offer of 1.7 or 1.9, because it's either that or zero. Because guess what? Either the president loses or the president wins, and we're not going above 1.9. If you think about that, it's quite devious. But what are the chances that the GOP will take the Senate? It's really all over the place. I can't sit here and predict to you whether the GOP will take the Senate and hold the Senate, or whether the GOP will lose the Senate. What's important for you to understand is that when I refer to the Senate, I refer to the Senate majority. Mitch McConnell will be reelected. He's leading his opponent by 8 percentage points. That's not what I'm referring to. Mitch McConnell's coming back, God forbid. But the GOP majority is the really big question about the Senate. The Democrats are running out of money, and they're running everywhere they can to get them money to pay for big ad campaigns to take the Senate. The question is whether that will work. And so as you sit here for Pelosi versus Mnuchin, what are the deal offers, and what are your progress is and what your focus is. Ultimately, the purple power needs to understand that you need to step up for your caucus and need to be very loud and very vocal and loud. If you have a GOP win in the Senate, if you have a Democratic win in the Senate. Ultimately, neither side wants to give you the correct stimulus at the moment. So you need to make it very clear, hey, I need sufficient stimulus. One stimulus check of Nancy Pelosi, no stimulus check from Mitch McConnell. Neither of these things are going to work. You need to get the amount of stimulus you're owed. And it involves the stimulus check, the FPUC, and the hazard pay. And ultimately, it doesn't really matter if Mitch is in control or Nancy's in control, because neither side is offering what you're entitled to get. Let's go over what they've offered so far. Mitch McConnell stimulus check, $0. Mitch McConnell FPUC, $300 a week, $200 a week. Mitch McConnell hazard pay, no way. The anti-hazard pay bill. Nancy Pelosi hazard pay, nope, took it out. Nancy Pelosi FPUC, $600, or don't come back to me unless you have exactly that amount of money. Nancy Pelosi stimulus check, $500 for dependents or children. No. So everything looks really bad from both sides, and ultimately we're dealing with something bad no matter what happens on election night. That's the focus of the purple power, because we're not going to sit back and say, hey, there's one scenario we do really well on election night. No. Just every scenario is a hot mess express. We're not going to be that confident about it. And so ultimately what you need to understand is you need to step out. Go on social media, look for on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram, all three platforms work, hashtag purple power check, hashtag purple power FPUC, hashtag purple power hazard pay. The hashtags work on both Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. People have been asking me, can I do it on Facebook? Absolutely. And with that discussion, you meet other people that want to be part of the caucus and want to be part of the grassroots efforts and say, hey, I want to stand up and I want to demand more money. And I am owed more money. And what's important to understand is the second wave of this pandemic, or the third wave, whatever you refer to it, and the third stimulus package. When I was recording these videos back in July, I fully thought that we would be on a third stimulus package by now. All economists think that we would be on a third stimulus package right now. The third stimulus package is the package to cover you through the lockdowns that are coming. There's going to be a lockdown, generally in most states across the country, unless you're in Florida, which is, he basically says, we'll be in bars and there'll be COVID in every corner, but yeah, we'll still be in bars. Covered in DeSantis. So other than that, there's going to be another wave of a lockdown, and you need stimulus checks for that lockdown. That's the third stimulus package. And then ultimately, as we sit here today, it's sort of shocking that we're talking about a second stimulus package when we should be on the third stimulus package. Most of the details of the second stimulus package do carry you to January, but the items that are one-time items, stimulus checks, hazard pay, FPU's EIDL grants, CDC grant, all those things are one-time items. Those things need to be in the third stimulus package, and we should be on them right now. And then ultimately, if Nancy Pelosi is endeavoring to do this stimulus bill in November, it's just not going to cut it. If she's thinking of doing this stimulus bill in January, not going to cut it. Basically, you need to have Nancy Pelosi, if she wants to keep her state and local at $400 billion, she needs to take her bill and balloon it, but not balloon it for herself or for governors or for raises or for state and local, balloon it for you. And that's where Pelosi versus MNUCHIN takes a turn. There were reports today that President Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, is reportedly starting to form a media company to prepare the president to move to a new focus if he's not reelected. The poll numbers across the board are not good tonight. The president is down in every swing state across the country. The poll ratings, the poll numbers are generally not close. And I understand the polls are often wrong, but these swing states are swing states that the president needs to take. Down 6 percentage points in Arizona, down 5 percentage points in Florida, down 7 percentage points in Michigan, down 3 percentage points in North Carolina, down 2 percentage points in Pennsylvania, and down 8 percentage points in Wisconsin. Ultimately, the president needs to take the majority of the swing states to win the Electoral College. What does that mean? To determine your president, it's not by the popular vote. It's based upon the Electoral College. And the calculation to win the Electoral College is by winning the majority of the swing state Electoral College votes. If you don't win them, you don't win the presidency. We saw this in the prior run that Hillary Clinton won the popular vote but did not win the Electoral College. So the path to get to 270, which is the master number of the Electoral College votes, is the swing states. And that ultimately, that's the path for the president. In the case of the Senate, there is no electoral college. In the case of the Senate, there is no swing states. In the case of the Senate, it's merely just winning your state. What's important to understand is that Mitch McConnell just needs to win his votes in Kentucky. He's not on the ballot in other states. He does not need to win swing states. So his concern is state specific. It's a totally different analysis than the run for the presidency. And that's ultimately why it's hard to predict what's going to happen with the Senate. Coming up next is Evenings LALATE. And boy, what a day it's been. I've been good and hope you've been good. Go to the front of the channel, subscribe, because we survived crashes and windstorms and more than that today. It was freezing as hell in the morning, and now it's hot in the middle of the day, and now it's windy as hell this afternoon. Also, like this video. As always, stay informed, stay smiling, and stay in that life and more.